Hi, I'm Tina, and this is the Sisterhood Sleuths podcast, created by Cathy Warshaw of Secret Societies and the Sisterhood Sleuths, where we don't just accept what we're told, we question it, because secrets are everywhere, and curiosity is the key. So let me ask you something. Have you ever met someone who seemed confident at first, but something about them felt off? Not obvious, just something. They spoke with certainty, they seemed sure of themselves, but instead of feeling clear, you felt uncomfortable. That feeling? That's the difference we're stepping into today. Because confidence and arrogance can look very similar at first, but they are not the same. And understanding that difference changes how you see people completely. Let's slow this down. Confidence is quiet. Arrogance is loud. Not always in volume, but in presence. Confidence doesn't need to prove itself. Arrogance does. Now think about that. A confident person doesn't need you to agree with them. They're steady, clear, grounded. An arrogant person? They need validation. They need to be right. They need others to see them a certain way. And that need changes everything. Now imagine Chloe in a situation. She's confident, but she's listening, observing, open to new information. Because confidence doesn't close the door, it keeps it open. Now imagine someone arrogant. They're not listening, they're waiting. Waiting to speak, waiting to respond, waiting to prove something. That's the difference. Now let's go deeper. Confidence comes from clarity. Understanding what you know, understanding what you don't know, and being okay with both. Arrogance comes from insecurity. Not always obvious, but real. Because when someone needs to prove they're right, they're not fully secure in it. Think about that. If you truly know something, you don't need to prove it constantly. You just know. Now Lily would notice this immediately, not just in what someone says, in how they respond to being questioned. A confident person welcomes questions. They think, they consider, they adjust if needed. An arrogant person? They resist, they defend, they shut down anything that challenges them. That's the signal. Now let's go deeper again. Have you ever noticed how confident people handle mistakes? They acknowledge them, not dramatically, clearly, because their confidence is not based on being perfect. It's based on understanding. Now someone arrogant, they avoid mistakes, or they explain them away, or they shift blame, because admitting a mistake feels like losing control. That's the difference. Now Gil understands this completely. He doesn't need to appear right. He needs to be accurate, and accuracy requires adjustment. That's real confidence. Now let's go deeper. Confidence allows space for others, for different ideas, for new information. Arrogance takes up space. It dominates. It controls. Not always loudly, but consistently. Now imagine a conversation. A confident person listens as much as they speak. An arrogant person? They speak more than they listen. Not because they have more to say, because they need to be heard. That's the difference. Now let's go deeper again. Confidence is stable. It doesn't change based on the situation. Arrogance is reactive. It shifts. When challenged, it becomes defensive. When praised, it becomes stronger. That instability is a signal. Now Yuki would notice this immediately because she looks for consistency. Does the behavior stay the same across situations, or does it change? Because real confidence is consistent. Arrogance is not. Now let's go deeper. Another key difference is awareness. Confident people are aware of others. They read the room. They adjust. They understand context. Arrogant people, they focus on themselves, what they think, what they believe, what they want to express, and that lack of awareness creates disconnection. Now, May would recognize this instantly because she watches alignment. Does the person respond to the situation, or are they locked into their own perspective? That's the signal. Now, Aoife would expand this. She would look at patterns over time, not just one interaction, many. Because confidence shows up consistently. Arrogance reveals itself over time, in reactions, in behavior, in how someone handles pressure. Now let's bring this back to you. You've seen this before. People who seemed confident, but something didn't feel right. People who spoke with certainty, but didn't listen. And now, you're starting to understand why. It wasn't confidence, it was something else. And that difference matters. How you respond depends on what you're actually seeing. Because here's the truth most people miss. Arrogance doesn't look like arrogance at first. It looks like confidence. That's why it's so easy to mistake. Let's slow this down. When you first meet someone, you don't have patterns yet. You don't have history. You only have a moment. And in that moment, certainty looks strong. Clarity looks impressive. Directness feels powerful. And that can look like confidence. But here's the difference. Confidence stays consistent. Arrogance changes over time. And that's where the truth reveals itself. Now imagine Chloe in that situation. At first, she listens. She doesn't decide immediately because she knows something important. One moment is not enough to understand someone. So she watches. How do they respond to questions? How do they react when challenged? How do they handle not knowing something? That's where the difference appears. Now let's go deeper. Arrogance often hides behind certainty. Strong statements, clear opinions, unshakable tone. Now imagine this. Someone says, "I know exactly how this works." At first, it sounds confident. But what happens when you ask a deeper question? Do they explain? Do they explore? Or do they shut it down? That response reveals everything. Now, Lily would notice this immediately because she doesn't focus on the statement. She focuses on what happens after. Confidence can explain. Arrogance defends. That's the difference. Now let's go deeper again. Arrogance often uses dismissal. Not obvious, subtle. That doesn't matter. You're overthinking. That's not important. What happens in that moment? The conversation closes, exploration stops, and control increases. That's not confidence. That's control. Now, Gil would recognize this instantly because he understands something critical. When someone dismisses without exploring, they're not seeking truth. They're protecting their position. That's the signal. Now let's go deeper. Arrogance also hides in overconfidence without awareness, speaking with certainty without considering context. Now imagine this. Someone gives an opinion with complete certainty, but they haven't asked any questions. They haven't gathered information. They just decided. That's not confidence. That's assumption. Now Yuki would see this clearly because she looks for process. Did the person observe? Did they analyze? Did they test their understanding? Or did they jump to a conclusion? That's the difference. Confidence is built. Arrogance is assumed. Now let's go deeper again. Arrogance often reacts to challenge. Not with curiosity, with resistance. Now imagine this. You question something. Not aggressively, just enough to explore. A confident person leans in. They think, they respond. An arrogant person? They push back. Not because the question is wrong, because it challenges them. That reaction is the signal. Now, May would notice this immediately because she watches emotional shifts. Does the tone change? Does the energy shift? Does the response become defensive? Because defense means something is being protected, not explored. Now let's go deeper. Arrogance also hides in the need to be right, not to understand, to win. Now imagine a conversation. Instead of exploring ideas, someone is trying to prove something. Every response moves toward being right, not toward understanding. That's not confidence. That's control. Now Luca would test this immediately. He would introduce a different perspective and watch. Does the conversation open? Or does it tighten? Because confidence expands. Arrogance restricts. Now let's go deeper again. Another sign is a lack of self-awareness. Not noticing how they come across, not adjusting to the situation. Now imagine someone dominating a conversation. Not because they need to, because they don't realize they are. That's not confidence, that's a lack of awareness. Now Aoife would see this over time. Not just one movement, many. Because patterns reveal everything. Does this behavior repeat across different situations, with different people? If it does, that's not confidence. That's a pattern of arrogance. Now let's bring this back to you. You're starting to see it. Not just in obvious situations, in subtle ones. Moments where something feels strong, but not aligned. Moments where certainty replaces curiosity. Moments where control replaces understanding. And now, you're not mistaking it. That's the shift. From being impressed by certainty to recognizing true confidence. Because real confidence doesn't need to prove. It shows, quietly, consistently, clearly. But there's one more step, and it's the most important one. How do you respond to it? Because recognizing the difference is one thing. Handling it is something else entirely. Not just the surface, the difference. The quiet steadiness of confidence and the shifting force of arrogance. And now comes the most important part. How do you move once you understand it? Because recognizing the difference changes how you respond. Let's go back to that moment. You're in a conversation. Someone speaks with certainty. At first, it sounds confident. But now, you notice more. The dismissal, the lack of listening, the need to control the direction. Before, you might have followed it. Now, you don't. Not aggressively, clearly, because you understand something important. You don't need to match arrogance. You stay in confidence. That's the shift. Most people react. Arrogance pushes, so they push back. And now the situation escalates. But that's not control. That's reaction. So what do you do instead? You stay grounded. Not louder, clearer. Let's step into this like a real sleuth. Chloe doesn't compete with arrogance. She doesn't try to prove herself. She stays focused on understanding, on clarity, because she knows something critical. Confidence doesn't need to win. It needs to see clearly. Now, Lily would take this further. She wouldn't engage in the need to be right. She would ask, not to challenge, to open. Questions that shift the conversation back to understanding. Because arrogance closes, confidence opens. That's the difference. Now Gil stays steady. He doesn't get pulled into reaction. He doesn't rush. He listens. And when he speaks, it's precise. Not to dominate, to clarify. Because clarity cuts through everything. Now let's go deeper, because here's what most people don't realize. You don't need to correct arrogance to overcome it. You just need to not follow it. Think about that. If someone is trying to control the direction and you don't move with it, they lose influence. Not because you stopped them, because you stayed in your position. That's power. Now let's bring in Yuki. Yuki doesn't engage emotionally. She evaluates. If something doesn't align, she doesn't accept it. She doesn't argue either. She simply doesn't incorporate it. That's control. Now May would go deeper. She would ask, what is driving this? Because arrogance always has a source. Insecurity, need for control, need for validation. And when you understand the source, you don't take it personally. You understand it. And that changes your response. Now Aoife would step back. She would look at patterns, not just one interaction, many. Because true confidence shows consistency, and arrogance reveals itself over time. In actions, in behavior, in how someone handles pressure. Now let's bring this back to you. You're no longer reacting to presence. You're understanding it. You're recognizing the difference. And now, you're choosing how to respond. Not based on pressure, not based on influence, based on clarity. That's the shift from reacting to choosing, from being influenced to staying grounded. Now here's the truth. You don't need to prove your confidence. You don't need to show it. You don't need to explain it. Because real confidence shows itself in how you move, in how you respond, in how you stay steady when others are not. That's the difference. Not loud, clear. Not forceful, grounded. Now think about that. How different would your interactions be if you stayed in confidence no matter what the other person did? If you didn't react to arrogance, but recognized it? If you stayed clear instead of getting pulled in? That's what you're building. Not control over others, control over yourself. And that is real power. So the next time you're in that moment, don't match the energy, don't react. Stay grounded, stay clear, stay confident. Because the moment you do, you're no longer influenced. You're in control. This week, your mission is called Stay Grounded. Pay attention to one conversation or situation where someone appears very confident. Then ask yourself, are they listening or only speaking? Do they welcome questions or shut them down? Are they trying to understand or trying to win? Do they stay steady when challenged or become defensive? Does their confidence feel calm or controlling? Your mission is not to judge people. Your mission is to learn the difference between confidence and arrogance. This week, practice responding with quiet confidence. Pause before reacting. Listen carefully. Ask thoughtful questions. Stay calm under pressure. Don't feel the need to prove yourself. Write down one moment where you noticed the difference between confidence and arrogance, what behavior revealed it, and how staying grounded changed the interaction. Because real sleuths understand something important. Confidence doesn't need to dominate a room. It stays calm, it listens, it learns, it stays steady. And the people who remain grounded when others become reacted often see the clearest. This is the Sisterhood Sleuths podcast, where clarity becomes your advantage and confidence becomes your strength. If this changed how you see people, how you understand presence, how you respond in moments that matter, then you're already moving differently, already stepping into a level most people never reach. And in the next episode, we go even deeper. Why leaders see things earlier and how they recognize patterns before anyone else. Until then, this is the Sisterhood Sleuth podcast, and I'm Tina, reminding you to stay curious, stay aware, and remember, secrets are everywhere. Curiosity is the key.
This episode was brought to you by Secret Societies and the Sisterhood Sleuths, an award-winning mystery adventure franchise featuring books, podcasts, music, educational programs, puzzles, and a global community for curious minds. Join the conversation with fellow sleuths right now in our official Goodreads Mystery Club. Learn more at sisterhoodsleuths.net.